In this video, we discussed the Contiguity Principle, which is a learning principle intended to minimize extraneous processing so that learners can more quickly and more effectively make sense of the core material of a lesson. There are actually two forms of the Contiguity Principle. First, spatial contiguity refers to the idea of aligning words to corresponding graphics and is applicable to situations where students must make sense of on-screen text. Conversely, temporal contiguity refers to the idea of aligning spoken words with corresponding graphics. As humans, we do this pretty naturally during presentations in person. However, this principle can be more easily violated in pre-recorded content, such as a lecture video. First, let's consider the spatial contiguity principle. The simple premise to follow is that the on-screen text that is paired with a corresponding graphic should appear as close as possible to one another. Let's examine two versions of the same image, one that violates and one that adheres to the spatial contiguity principle, for comparison. In this first image, we see an artistic rendering of the human brain with 7 parts of the brain identified using the letters A through G. The key for the letters is shown below, with each letter being listed next to the corresponding name for each identified area of the brain. In contrast, the second image shows the exact same artistic rendering of the brain. However, rather than identifying the parts of the brain with letters and a corresponding key presented beneath the image, each part of the brain is instead directly labeled. By doing this, and using eye-tracking research tools, it has been shown that users who view content similar to the image on the right have better retention scores on transfer tests. You're probably asking yourself, why is that? In short, by correctly applying the contiguity principle, as seen in the image on the right, learners more effectively create visual connections between the on-screen text, the labels, and the corresponding areas of the image presented, the brain. In the violating image on the left, learners engage in a lot more extraneous effort in an attempt to make such connections. By adhering to the spatial contiguity principle, we can eliminate that extraneous processing learners might otherwise experience. Switching gears, let's turn our attention to the temporal contiguity principle. Again, temporal contiguity is related to timing spoken words with any corresponding on-screen graphics or animations. It's a multimedia principle that primarily affects pre-recorded content rather than content presented in real time. If what you're speaking about is poorly timed with the corresponding visuals presented on screen, such as a vocal lag, your learners will quickly get distracted by the misalignment and will likely tune out sooner than later. If that happens, you are negatively impacting their learning. The primary reason you want to apply the contiguity principle to your teaching and to the design of your sessions is that you want to minimize any extraneous processing students might have to engage in. In doing so, students are less likely to get distracted by fixable issues, such as misaligned words and graphics, and instead will have a better likelihood of paying attention to the correct information. That is, the information that supports the main objectives of your session. In our next video, we'll dive into the modality principle, which identifies why you may want to opt for spoken words over on-screen text and can help manage the inherent complexity of the topics you discuss in your sessions. Until next time.